stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of Joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel V. Hill.
Welcome to it, everybody. Happy Victory Monday, third one in a row. This is a rare intersection in the last handful of years, but we've now had 3 weeks in a row where Victory Monday intersects with Merilatt Monday.
Yeah.
And that is who joins me this morning. Hello, James. How are you?
I'm good, Richie. How are you? It's becoming a tradition here. I get to come in on Monday for coffee break and talk about a win.
A little bit. Hey, it's a tradition I'll happily welcome.
Indeed.
It was of all the weeks that I just feel like needed a win, this was one.
Yeah.
You had this ugly streak against the Raiders. It would have been 9 in a row, I believe, had they lost.
Yep.
It was the throwback day. We've been waiting for these glorious jerseys, and my God, were they glorious.
They were better than, I don't remember them looking that good when they actually wore those.
Yeah.
In 77, and, they had those uniforms all the way until 97 when they changed. I don't remember them ever looking that good. Like, it was the brightest blue, the brightest orange. Maybe it was just a beautiful sunny day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but it's like, damn, these things look good.
I said it just because you get social media renderings, stuff like that, and people put, like, for the longest time it was photoshopping Cortland Sutton into that jersey.
Yeah.
He even reposted on his own social media a couple times, and I was like, they should never wear anything else. I understand that they've won 3 championships in the new iteration of the jersey.
Yeah.
They never won one in those old ones. I don't care. I honestly, that makes me want to wear it more. Let's win one in the new ones.
Would you, now we're getting way ahead of ourselves with the 3-2 team, so I'm not talking this year, but let's just play the hypothetical. That's one of their alternate uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
If you make it to the Super Bowl, do you break those out for the game?
Yeah. Listen, I'm not. I have it in me to be superstitious, and that feels like it's just ready to trigger some kind of superstitious.
Because Super Bowl 50, they were the home team, and they chose to wear white because they had never won a Super Bowl in orange ever. Anytime they wore orange, they lost.
Wow.
Including Super Bowl 48. They were the home team. They wore orange. They got their butt kicked by the Seahawks. So 2 years later, they were due to wear orange. They chose white because they've either worn blue, Super Bowl 32, or white, Super Bowl 33, and now Super Bowl 50. I'd be tempted to break those out.
Yeah, here's my answer is absolutely yes. You should do it because I just want them to wear those as much as possible.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen because there's money involved, and you got to have a certain amount of alternates, and the NFL wants to sell jerseys and blah blah blah. And I think I know that you're in the camp of they shouldn't wear them all the time. But if they made those the new uniform, the new old uniforms, and just brought it back, I'd be fine with it.
I'd be fine with it. I like the fact that they only wear them a couple of times a year. I think it makes it special.
And I feel like it's a counter stance for me. Like, as a millennial, it's like, sometimes things were just better before.
Yeah.
I watched the Atlanta Falcons had like their color rush jerseys on Thursday night that were kind of a throwback to, like, they were like black and the red was more red, and the Falcon, like, that looks cooler than what they normally wear. Just do that.
I'm with you. Uniforms were better back in the day.
I think it meant more.
They were, and I don't know what it was. Maybe they were a little bit simpler.
Yeah.
Like, I like the new Broncos uniforms. I do. But they also have a lot going on in them, right? Like,
it's because everything's got to mean something. It's like, this triangle is Mount Elbert, and this one is,
It's just it's like they're trying too hard.
Yeah.
There's too much going on.
Right.
Just looking at them yesterday, I'm like, man, those are glorious. Those are great. So that would be my thing. I would make sure I would break those out when they get to the Super Bowl. That would be cool.
It was throwback from head to toe, from the uniforms to the field paint, to the music you heard in the stadium, to the game programs in the seats. And in a lot of ways, it was a pretty heavy throwback performance from the Broncos. We haven't seen them really just stomp on a team. It took them a little bit to get going. They had to get the car warmed up a little bit before it peeled out. And in a lot of ways, the beginning of the game felt pretty familiar. I mean, Brock Bowers is like, oh, here's the latest tight end that's going to absolutely murder our Denver defense as good as they've been playing. But then, they made some adjustments. Credit to VJ. They put Pat Surtain on him a handful of times. He destroyed everybody else. Which
was not surprising. The way the game started, I was like, oh, here we
go again.
And look, the Raiders are in disarray. I mean, the Devontae Adams thing last week, then during the game, they bench Gardner Minshew. So now they have a quarterback issue. Like, that team's a mess. You can't blow a 2-game winning streak against that team, right? Like, if the games were flip-flopped and they'd have played the Chargers yesterday, It's like, okay, that's a tougher draw, but the Raiders stink. You had to go win it. I don't know that I'd go full Mike Evans and say it was a must win, because it's hard to have a must win on October 6th, but it kind of felt like it. And if they were about to go down 17-3, this team isn't built to come back from 2 touchdowns down. That was the biggest play of the season. One of the biggest plays, Pat Surtain's 100-yard pick six, one of the biggest plays in recent Broncos memory. That play saved their season in terms of, hey, can they be in contention? Can they be a playoff
3-2
conversation?
is a lot different than 2-3. Oh my gosh. Especially given how it started. You started with 2 ugly losses. You actually should have won your first 2 games and probably lost week 3 and week 4.
Yeah.
But you flipped it. And so this one was kind of the equilibrium game. And we're seeing a lot of comments roll in on social media. A lot of people, I think, are upset, and they don't want Sean Payton to get the credit for having a good defense, because that's Vance Joseph.
He's riding VJ's coattails. I think people are right.
Yeah, but you know what? That's okay.
That's okay. It's fine, but Sean Payton shouldn't get any credit for that.
I'm not saying he does. That's why I said credit
choice.
That's why I said credit to Vance Joseph.
He wanted Rex. I mean, he wanted anybody else. He wanted Vic. Jeez, can you imagine that mess? VJ's done a great job. He really has.
He has had one of the more miraculous 180s, from a perception standpoint, because, prior to Nathaniel Hackett, I think Josh McDaniels was like this was the worst head coaching experience ever. And it may still be, but VJ's teams were some of the most blown out in the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't just losing. It was losing ugly.
Giving up the 50 burger to the Eagles. And then last year, it did not start well, right? They gave up 70 to Miami. Like, that's just over a calendar year ago. And the change, and they talked about it in the broadcast yesterday, about how he was trying to run a hodgepodge, a mesh of his system.
Which makes sense. You're coming into a new place where they just left a system. Instead of redoing the entire thing, ripping the tree up from the roots, it's like, hey, let's massage this a little bit.
I can see why they tried to do it, but clearly in hindsight, it was a mistake. And they've been they have a 5-0 defense. Their defense is good enough that they should be 5-0. If their offense was competent in the first 2 games, just competent, which is what they were yesterday. They weren't great. Bo Nix wasn't great, but they were competent. And when they got a short field, they scored. I mean, they had less than 300 yards total offense. They put 34 points on the board. Now, 7 of it came from the defense, but still, that's being pretty efficient. They were competent.
27 points, offensively.
Which is for them is a big day. Yeah, if they'd have played that well in Seattle, they win. If they'd have played that well against Pittsburgh, they win. So they have a 5-0 defense. That's what's legit. Sean Payton is riding VJ's coattails. I'm kind of with the commenters here.
You're just going to keep working that one in. But I mean, he is the head coach, so he doesn't necessarily get all the credit for the things that happen on the other side of the ball, but he is the captain of the ship. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be all because of him that the defense is going well, that he gets all the credit, but you also don't have to negatively, you're kind of pushing it in the other direction. You're saying that Vance Joseph should be the head coach because he's really the one stirring this string.
I didn't say that.
You're kind of saying it.
No, I just said VJ's doing a great job. Do you think Sean's doing a great job?
I think this was his best job.
That's not my question. I think he's done a very average job as the head coach.
I think he's done. I think that's fair. I think he's done an average job. Now, that being said, I don't think what he's being asked to do is necessarily a walk in the park. I mean, you've got a rookie QB.
That's his doing.
I know. Can you imagine? Did it not need to happen, James? Yeah, if they had drafted Brock Bowers, would we be stoked right now walking in with Jared Stidham?
No. You got to hear the full hypothetical. Can you imagine this defense? Brock Bowers would change things immensely.
We said that about Greg Dulcich.
All of a sudden they have a come on. Brock Bowers and Russ. Oh my gosh, this team they'd be 5-0.
No. I'm not going back.
They would be 5-0 if it wasn't just Sean Payton having to be stubborn.
No, absolutely not. I'm not going back. Russ,
he's running such a training wheels offense.
You did say something that I agree with though, which was that this team thus far, and basically, in the last 5 years, is not a team that's built to come back, right?
They are not.
So even when they were, forget 17, when they almost went down 17-0, when they were down 10-0 at the end of the first quarter, I was like, this might be curtains. Do you know how many times the Broncos have come back from a first quarter deficit to win a game in the last 4 seasons. So since COVID, right? That's like a good barometer.
Wow. Come back from what? It's double-digit lead or just trailing it all?
Just trailing. It could be 3-0, could be 7-0, could be 17-0.
My guess is not very often. Let's say 5.
Because of this most recent game, it's 5.
Okay.
Prior to yesterday, they were 4-27.
You know who probably led all 4? Russ.
No, it was actually it was 20.
I mean, he brought him back again on Christmas Eve, and then Pat Surtain gave up the big completion, but he brought him back from a 16-point fourth quarter deficit.
I actually wrote him down because I thought you might. So one of them was that god awful Thursday night football game, which was Russ, right? That was the 11-10
the Niners,
Niners game where home team Broncos fans were leaving at the end of regulation in a tie game.
Yeah.
And then you had a couple against Jacksonville in 21-22, and then you had a game against the Jets in the COVID year. But yeah, This was the 5th time since COVID that they have been trailing by any score in the first quarter and come back to win. And
that's remarkable.
Yeah.
I mean, a first quarter deficit,
3-0.
Not that big a deal.
There were, and a lot of those losses, or at least some of them, going back all those years, were like 3-0. It's like you couldn't even come back from 3.
So if they don't
first
start
to score.
You're right. If they don't start well, essentially for the last 4 years, they were done.
Yeah.
They had no shot.
And they bucked that trend. And I think that's, we've talked a lot over the last handful of years about this Broncos team not having an identity, right? They're kind of just a rudderless ship floating in the tide. And it feels like through strong defensive play, because they haven't been able to establish something solid on offense yet, strong defensive play, running the football and minimizing the quarterback having to put it on its back, like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, kind of thing, that they're starting to find a winning formula and winning success. And so do you think it's sustainable? They've won 3 weeks in a row.
I do, because their defense has been good every single week.
Right.
I mean, I guess
now we said this last year with the whole turnover margin, and the defense was playing unbelievable.
This isn't that. I guess yesterday they have 3 picks, so they got a lot of turnovers yesterday.
It was the first pick 6 since 2021, which was also Pat Surtain.
So I mean, look, that was a monster play. If they fall down 17-3 there, I think it's over. I think it's curtains.
It changes the whole dynamic of the game.
It's amazing that the Raiders were about to go up 17-3. They were doing whatever they wanted. By the end of the game, Gardner Minshew was benched.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, talk about a 180.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was 1st and goal from the 5. What an unbelievably poor decision by the quarterback, right? Like, it wasn't open. He just kind of threw it into a crowd of people.
Yeah.
Surtain made a nice play on it, but he didn't have to make a great play. It was kind of chucked right at him.
Yeah.
It's just an unbelievably bad decision on 1st and goal from the 5. But look, the defense it's a 5-0 defense.
Mm-hmm.
That I think is sustainable. I think the most important player or the most valuable player so far through the first 5 games for this team is Riley Moss, because he's been so good.
Mm-hmm.
It's forcing teams that they actually do have to throw it Pat Surtain's way.
I was talking about this with a friend of mine. We were watching the game. I think Riley Moss is quietly having a great season. I say quietly because the only people that seem to be really shouting about him beyond our, cul-de-sac are like, PFF analysts who are doing it from a data standpoint about, oh, he had the lowest, blah, 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 whatever. And it's like 93.7 grade or whatever. But I agree with you, because I think that is, if you have a standout corner, whether it's Sauce Gardner or Pat Surtain or whatever, and the other guy on the other end is a slappy, it negates the effectiveness of the good corner.
Totally.
Because it's like, okay, we don't have to throw to you. We're going to pick on this guy all game. And how many times did we see that where it was the Isang Bassies,
right?
Or
it was Damari Mathis getting 5 pass interference penalty or 4 pass interference penalties in one game because they just went that way all the time. Pat Surtain had 2 picks yesterday. In the previous 2 seasons, he had 3 total.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is just some of it's bounces, right? The second one was just a fortunate bounce.
Once it becomes a tip drill, it's kind of.
But a lot of it was, hey, the ball didn't come his direction a ton. It was very rare. Now teams are actually having to go that direction because Riley Moss has been so good on the other side. I think he's been the MVP through 5 games. I think he's the guy that makes that defense work. I really do. I think that in the front 4.
Well, I was going to say, because I think you could kind of, it's a little bit of a chicken or an egg argument, because does the secondary help the pass rush by holding the receiver down so that the pass rushers have more time to get to the quarterback, or does the pass rush more often force the quarterback into a throw, which makes it easier on a secondary to be able to hold up the coverage?
There's certainly been some
because Zach Allen has been amazing.
He's been great.
He's got Pro Bowl stature through 5 games of a season.
The Tampa game, I think they got Baker 7 times that day.
Yep.
Some of those were covered sacks.
I don't think I should have asked Cecil Lamb about this. I can't remember the last time the Broncos had a 7-sack game. You probably have to go back to like a game where Vaughn and Chubb just wrecked house, or maybe even Vaughn and DeMarcus Ware. Like it might go all the way back to 2015, 16.
Their ability to get pass rushed, and I know they blitz like they bring 5 more than anybody else in the league. So it's not just the front 4; it's who else are they bringing. But their ability to get a consistent pass rush has helped the secondary a ton. But the fact that they've got guys back there who can make plays, and obviously Surtain, everybody knows he's a great player. I don't think they should have given him that kind of money because I think it's a luxury position, and they're not, at least at the beginning of the season, they didn't seem like they were in a spot to have luxury spendings. But obviously he's great. Riley Moss has been really good. PJ Locke is a playmaker. Like their secondary has been much better than I thought it would be, other than PS2. But I think it all starts with pass rush. If you get a pass rush, look, the no-fly zone was great, but the fact that they had Vaughn Miller, DeMarcus Ware, Derek Wolfe, Malik Jackson pressuring quarterbacks all the time, and typically just doing it with 4, that helped them be much more effective.
You mentioned making plays, and I think that it's fair to say that when it came to making plays, Bo Nix looked a hell of a lot better this weekend than he did last weekend in East Rutherford, when he had arguably the lowest bar set for a quarterback in NFL history. But take a look at the box score between these last 2 games and tell me why we shouldn't be encouraged by these kind of numbers. Similar amount of attempts, but significantly better completion percentage, almost 3 times the amount of yards, more touchdowns. And it wasn't just that. I think what the box score doesn't show is I think he had a lot more touch throws, and his ball placement was better in a lot of those situations. It wasn't like he was hanging guys out to dry, or he was throwing them 3 yards behind because they were not on the same page.
The second touchdown, the one to Reynolds, was a really nice throw. That was a big time throw. But other than that, like, am I encouraged by the numbers? Sure. Especially the fact he hasn't thrown an interception. And even in the inclement weather last week, he didn't throw an interception. But it's also like, I'm not sure Jarrett Stidham wouldn't have done the exact same thing yesterday. I'm not sure. I know Jarrett Stidham could have done.
Why do you say that? What makes you say that?
What did he do that was special?
What did Jarrett Stidham do that was adequate?
They're both, I think they're both very mediocre at this point.
Bo Nix has started as many games in the NFL in 5 weeks as Jarrett Stidham has in 4 years.
If you had to decide right now, is Bo Nix the quarterback of the future?
Over Jarrett Stidham?
No, just Bo Nix. Are you confident in saying, yep, they got their guy?
I am more confident than I would be if Jarrett Stidham was starting.
I'm not saying that,
but
I
that's
would be
who we're talking
Stidham.
About.
I would
no,
say
I don't think you can say right now.
They'd be 3-2 with Jarrett Stidham. They would be.
I don't know about.
They would have won yesterday with Jarrett Stidham. They would have beat Tampa with Jarrett Stidham. They would have.
All we heard from Sean Payton was that Jarrett Stidham was going to give us the spark after Russ and all that, and I didn't feel any sparks.
He's very average. I think at this point in his career, and it's only been 5 games, I get it. I think Bo Nix has been very average.
That's okay. But the difference
is wow.
Of course.
Bo Nix ain't wow.
Yeah. Jaden Daniels went second overall and was, Heisman Trophy winner in college.
Okay. Well, this guy went and he started more games than anybody in college football history.
I agree. Listen, you think I'd be upset if Jaden Daniels was here? No, but he's not. Bo is here. And I think it is fair to say he's been average overall through 5 weeks. The difference is I'm okay with Bo Nix looking average through 5 games because of the trajectory and the ceiling that he has potentially in front of him. I'm not okay with Jarrett Stidham looking average through 5 games because Jarrett Stidham might already be the best he's ever going to be.
I don't disagree with that, Richie. And I don't want Jarrett Stidham to be the quarterback. I'm just saying they'd be 3-2 with him, which is my way of saying Bo Nix has been pretty average. He's been Jarrett Stidham-esque to me. I'm not convinced he's going to be a franchise quarterback.
I'm not either yet. I'm hopeful, but I'm not convinced. But there is somebody that I want to make sure that I give kudos to, and that's Cecil Lammey, because Cecil last week, when he's been sitting in with Josh, he said that somebody is going to have, because this was after the latest Sean Payton, blow up on the sideline.
Right.
Right. And he said, eventually somebody's going to have to be the guy that gives it back to Sean Payton. Right.
Yeah.
Something the tantrum can't just be spouting out in one direction. And he called his shot and said, Bo Nix is going to be the guy that gives it back to him.
Boy, that's an impressive shot to call, because who would think the rookie quarterback?
I agree. Now, he didn't say it was going to happen next week, because at this time, I think they were going they were coming off of the Bucs game, going into the Jets game, I think.
Okay.
And so he wasn't saying like it's going to happen this weekend in New York, or he didn't put a timeline on it, but he was like, Sean Payton picked Bo Nix. Therefore, he has, a certain level of respect for him and a certain level of investment in making him work. And Bo Nix, his personality and the way that he's wired with the confidence that he has and kind of the fire that he plays with, Bo Nix is going to be the guy to give it back to him. And we saw it with the argument on the side. I don't know how you felt in the moment watching it. When I saw that, a lot of times if I had seen that with Peyton and Russ, I would have been like, oh God.
Yeah.
But when I saw it with the two of them, I was like, hell yeah.
No, I loved it. I know you don't want to see it every week. Obviously,
and Bo said that. He said you can't be doing that every week.
That becomes dysfunction. But I do want to see my quarterback have that kind of fire. Like, that's, to me, that's some leadership qualities.
And
that's a guy I go to battle with.
I think an important distinction is Bo was the aggressor in the conversation. Sean wasn't yet. Now, he might have been before at least from what we were able to see, because Sean could have been yelling at him coming off the sideline, right? Because I feel like that's a lot of times when coaches do the screaming, when guys are transitioning off the field.
That's when I do.
Right. So that could have happened. But all we saw, which is all I can go off of, was Sean was actually on the sideline in a more calm manner. And Bo was the one who was pounding his fist into his hand and pointing at him and getting aggressive, to the point where Sean turned around and was like trying to settle him down a little bit. Like, hey, I hear you. It
was great. It was my biggest criticism of Russell Wilson was I thought he lost a lot of credibility with his teammates in the Carolina game, the Hackett year, when Mike Purcell yelled at him on the sideline. You can't let that crap fly.
No.
You're the quarterback of the team, and some journeyman defensive lineman is chewing you out in front of everybody. It's like, would Peyton Manning put up with that crap?
I was just going to, because even Peyton Manning, one of the more even-keeled things, everyone has seen the clip of him blowing up on Jeff Saturday, his incredibly well-respected, long-tenured center or whatever. And Jeff Saturday says something, he goes, hey, just snap the ball, Jeff. How about that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it's not enough, and he gets up and they're going after him, and like Dwight Freeney or something's got to hold him back. And no, so Peyton would have put up with that. And there's only a handful of people who would have spoken up to Peyton.
Well, and it also said something about his standing in the locker room that Mike Purcell felt like it was okay to do that. Right. Like none of the defensive
captain.
No, none of the defensive players back when Elway was here. Not even at the end when Elway was, everybody knew he was going to the Hall of Fame, but like going back to those throwback uniforms, right? And he's wearing that, and they lose 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. Nobody would have pulled that nonsense. Nobody, because he was beloved by his teammates. Clearly, Russ wasn't. And then the thing last year in Detroit, when Sean Payton was yelling at him, you got to push back in that situation. You have to. Like, you don't have to be insubordinate, but you can say something, especially given that was the situation where it was 4 runs or whatever from inside the 1 yard line. It wasn't Russ's fault that Quinn Miners jumped offside and that series got derailed. So yeah, I liked what we saw out of Bo Nix on that front. I liked that.
I also, another thing that I liked about it, and I've seen it analyzed, the play that led to the confrontation on the sideline was the deep ball to Troy Franklin, right? Yep. I mean, on the surface, it felt like, oh God, here's another Troy Franklin drop. Just like, this guy's going to be the latest like haunting draft pick of like, we had all this buzz and excitement, and it just fizzles into nothing. And hopefully he's able to pick it up and turn around. I am of the mind that I think that was a catchable ball that he should have caught. Bo might have overthrown him a little bit, but I also think Troy Franklin stopped running because he was not at all the intended receiver on that route.
No, but that play, he's wide open. So if Sean Payton said anything to him when he was coming off the field, he probably said, you don't have to make a perfect throw there. Yeah. Right. Like, he was trying to hit him right in stride here. Like, he's so open.
Let him adjust underneath.
Just make sure he can. It's a catch.
And there is speculation that if Sean was yelling at him, and what Bo may have yelled back was clearly a schemed up play by Sean. And at least for a flash, Bo did have hit an underneath route receiver on a short distance, on a short down and distance to try to pop it open. It looked like they kind of just tried to rub a screen pass or a drag route open. And it was there for a flash, but it did kind of drop late. So it looked like Bo was looking at it, didn't like it, looked at Sutton, wasn't going to force it in, and said, screw it. He's open, and I'm feeling it.
I can't imagine Sean Payton was mad at him for taking a deep shot. The guy was wide open.
Yeah.
So if anything, it would have been, again, you don't have to make a perfect throw there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'd like to know what Bo said back. Maybe it's hey, how about dressing somebody who can catch the football? Like, why is Troy Franklin continuing to get significant snaps?
Because he's a 4th-round draft pick. That's the only thing I agree with you. It's the only thing I can think of. It's the only thing I can think of, and maybe because he's Bo's college teammate.
Why is that not Marvin Mims on that play?
I don't know, but that's who I wanted. I did not want to end today's show without making sure that we said hello again to Marvin Mims, because talk about a guy. I mean, all the way back from camp, we sat there on the side every day and just watched him visibly struggle, and not just struggle like he's, he wasn't getting targeted or his routes weren't crisp, whatever. His body language was dejected.
Yeah.
He just looked like a guy that was defeated.
Yeah.
And it was kind of sad because every time he touched the ball, it felt like last year it was a big play, or it was the potential for one and something happened, or, whatever. And so I know it came in on special teams, the vast majority of it. But he had 235 plus yard returns that can significantly flip a field percentage. And they had kind of been, the momentum had all kind of been crashing in their favor at that point, but that helped it.
Oh, those are huge plays for an offense that struggles.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that sounds funny considering they scored 27 offensive points yesterday, but they didn't have 300 yards total offense.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody acts like Javonte Williams. He had 61 yards rushing. Like,
he was the leading receiver on the team.
Right, which goes to show you, like, that's not a very good offensive day when he's your leading receiver.
And I don't know, like, I'd have to go back and watch it a little more closely, because at first I just thought, oh, that's just Bo being uncomfortable and he's just dumping it off. That's why I thought, if Greg Dulcich stayed healthy, that he was just going to be an animal, because tight ends can be a quarterback's best friend, get the ball out quick, and running backs are an extension of that. But I actually, the way it's been this consistent, I think it's intentional. I think they're scheming a lot of plays, dump off screens to the running back, delayed screens, things like that, Texas routes, whatever. And if it works, that's great. But again, there's a part of me, and he kind of proved it wrong yesterday. He looked pretty good in a lot of facets yesterday, but I'm like, why is Javonte that back and not Marvin Mims? And then as soon as I say that, they put Jaleel McLaughlin in for one, and he gets blown up because he's an undersized guy and Max Crosby just swallows him or whatever it is. So I don't know exactly what's going on there, but I don't know if I love my running back being the leading receiver.
No,
unless he's Christian McCaffrey.
Okay.
Christian McCaffrey can do whatever he wants.
Sure. He's a unicorn, right? Like, he's one of one.
Yeah.
Javonte Williams isn't that. When Javonte Williams is your leading receiver, you did not have a very good offensive day, at least through the air. This is still a team that, I think it was week 3 last year, the last time they had a 100-yard receiver or rusher. It was Marvin Mims against Washington.
Yeah, because he had that massive, 60-yard.
Yeah. So they just, there's a lack of explosiveness. There's not big plays. They do need to get this offense going, because the defense, I think it's sustainable. I think they're going to be good week in and week out. But at some point, the offense has to do their share.
All right. So to close it out, we started the season with 2 losses, and we've now rattled off 3 straight wins. We being the collective bandwagon Broncos.
Yes, I'm on board.
Yes. I'm not going to be as gatekeepy as the morning show was with you about it. Okay. I think you got to jump on.
I'm on.
How much better, worse, or indifferent do you feel about Bo Nix after these last 3 games compared to maybe when they started 0-2?
I feel about the same.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think he's played any. I mean, the Tampa game was probably his best game, especially that first drive. He was really good. But even in that game, I hosted the Monday after with Mike Evans. I said, what throw did he make that Jarrett Stidham couldn't make? Like, you have to do something at some point that makes me think, oh, this guy's special. His best play in that game was a run, right? The Houdini act where he escaped against Tampa. I think teams have taken that away because he's not Lamar Jackson. If they decide, hey, we're not going to let him run, they can take that out of his repertoire. I don't feel great about Bo Nix. I don't. So I'm not saying he's a bust at all. I'm just saying I don't know yet. I don't have enough data to make that
decision.
Do you
feel better after the last 3 games about the way that about Sean Payton and the way that they've seemed to come together? Nothing. He gets worse. So he was a disaster. The only reason we're not talking about his dumb moves against the Jets is because Robert Saleh made even dumber moves. I'll give you this. He does not have a good track record with coaches' challenges. He's up there with Vic Fangio when it comes to coaches' challenges.
Kicking a 50-yard field goal.
I don't know what's going on there.
Wet, sloppy day. It's terrible.
Speaking of, because all these things are now coming on the way out, tell me Will Lutz isn't the crown prince of second chance kicks. I feel like Will Lutz has been here 2 years, and I think I've seen at least, definitely 2, one of which was a game winner in Buffalo. I think there's been at least 2 or 3 missed field goals from Will Lutz that have been called back by a penalty that he then makes. And you might say like, oh, well, any kicker gets a second chance. No. Younghoe Koo missed a 45-yarder for the Falcons, got a second chance, missed it again. This guy has to be the luckiest kicker when it comes to second chance kicks I've ever seen.
I'm with you. It is kind of a quirky little anomaly, but he's been good. He's been really good. He's been better than Brandon McManus's last couple of years here.
Yeah.
Every time
I do think in hindsight, people it was hard to reconcile in some ways in that moment when McManus was here toward the end because of how amazing he was from the even just before the Super Bowl to relatively close after it. But his distance beyond 50 yards dropped pretty significantly. His percentage of kicking past 50 was significant, and the accuracy went down too. So I agree with you. I think Will Lutz has had some fortunate breaks. And I think he's only been here 2 years, and he's had some stick out games where it's like, oof.
Well, the first ever kick he had as a Bronco was a missed extra point against the Raiders last year, and they lost 17-16.
Yep.
So, but it was also the first time center, holder, kicker ever worked together in a game, because for whatever reason they didn't bring in Will Lutz until after the preseason, which was silly. That cost him a game. But look, I'm on the bandwagon. This team at this point, the expectations needs to be playoffs. They're 3-2. Right now, if the season ended, they'd be a playoff team. That needs to be the expectation, because their offense should only get better, right? And I think their defense can maintain this. So that's the standard. We'll see if Sean Payton can deliver.
We will see. It's a Victory Monday. It's the 3rd one in a row. We are going to relish it for as long as we can, as the Chargers are coming to town in a few days. So we'll have to see what comes out between now and then. But until then, James, I guess we'll just.
I'll be back Thursday with you.
Yeah,
we'll preview the Charger game that day.
Perfect. Well, have a great rest of your day, everybody. Get back to work.